The first game we will talk about is this National Championships game where South Australia got up 87-75 at Third Barton Oval, which was a pretty entertaining game for a first opening game of the championships. SA were pretty much trailing for most of the day in a really, really big third quarter comeback almost, and it was goal for goal in that last quarter, but the SA boys got up against an Allies team who, well, was undefeated last year and obviously a different look this year, but big win to start the champs for the South Australians.
Yeah, certainly, and there were plenty of talent leaguers in action for the Allies outfit, but we will go through all of the players because obviously we're going to be watching all of these championships games and there's interest for these prospects across Australia. We'll start with the Allies though, and we'll start with Leo Lombard, who has spent some time in the Coates Talent League playing for the Gold Coast Academy. He's one you've really had a close eye on throughout the early parts of this season and last season as well. Obviously, the Gold Coast VFL Premiership player as a 16-year-old got his champs off to a flying start from all reports.
Yeah, well, he might have been pretty close to best on ground with that performance. It's his natural strength at the contest that stands out. He's a very poised player and he knows when to impact and when to sit back a little bit, hold his width on the outside and also make an impact through that. Really good composure with ball in hand, and that's typical in his performances throughout last year and this year, even when we saw him through the academy as well. And he was impactful in forward as well. Kicked a really big goal in the third quarter where he burst through, ripping apart two opponents and running into an open goal, but was terrific in the end. And I thought if you was anything to critique on his game, probably just when he's got a lot of confidence, he may take on just a little bit too much. And he had one moment where he did that, but he still got the free kick for it. So everything went well for him. He was just spectacular for the Allies, and he'll be their best player. You could probably argue in every game they play.
Good time to be a Gold Coast Suns supporter with the academy kids they've got coming through. Also a good time to be a Tasmanian with the AFL team coming in a few years. They had a few players in action, including Ollie DePoli-Cubank. He's one who laid a few tackles on the day. His pressure's been pretty good to start the season, and he's someone who catches the eye.
Yeah, well, his tackle pressure was terrific. I think up to halftime he already had 7 tackles, and he kicked 2 really, really nice goals. The first goal, unfortunately, the stream cut out when you just heard the commentator say what a terrific finish by DePoli-Cubank. But his second goal was terrific as well. Just his ability to stay composed inside 50, read the intercept well from a kick-in, just bounced around 2 players and walked into an open goal. And then it was his running capacity that I think outlasted most of the boys come the second half when the Allies were chasing the lead quite a lot. His ability to run and generate some carry on the outside and also provide as an option, I thought in transition was terrific on his behalf. And I think it's a really nice game for him to build off.
That's really good to hear from his perspective. Fellow Tasmanian Lenny Douglas had a couple of shots on goal as well, I think. But Sam Marshall and Nathaniel Solsberger, a couple of players who have represented the Sandy Dragons. Nathaniel Solsberger representing the Allies courtesy of his Tassie background, boarding at Melbourne Grammar at the moment, and Sam Marshall, a Brisbane Lions Academy product. What those two add to the lineup?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Sam Marshall. Just general strength and composure around the contest. Won all his 50-50s really well and just was doing those little 1% things good around the centre stoppages, around general contests around the ground, and creates his own space with the ball in hand and was able to generate some really easy and nice handballs off in transition and get the ball moving forward, which is what the Allies were doing really well in the first half compared to SA, where they were really struggling with that final kick inside 50. And Nathaniel Salzberger, yeah, well, he's a really neat player, just understands how to get rid of it and lower his eyes and always find that next option really well. In terms of offense, that was where he was really productive, I thought, was lowering his eyes inside 50 and, a few kicks where it would just miss the target, but it was always the right idea, and they were never ineffective kicks. They would just, they would always either slip through or miss the forward just by that centimetre. But he's just got the right idea. He understands his fundamentals really well, and just tactically moving offensively, he's really neat and polished in that sense. Good
to hear, and to think about the fact that they've performed well at national championships level and they're going to come back into a full-strength Sandy outfit at the end of the year is something that's ominous for the rest of the competition. But last one from a talent league perspective that I think we're going to touch on today is Josh Murphy. His one-on-one strength had me predicting him to be the CTL leading goal kicker at the start of the year, and I think he showed that in the first quarter from what you've told me.
Yeah, well, he would have won best on ground if you talk about a first quarter. He finished with 3 goals, had 2 goals in that first quarter, but he's always been known for his leading patterns, like that power. He's almost unbeatable from a one-on-one perspective when he just generates those first couple steps and gets that sort of 40 to 50 metre range where he's hands in front, he'll always take that mark. And the 2 goals he kicked were sensational set shots. Like just a general comment. They were amazing set shots from that distance and that type of angle. Pretty much the same shot. He actually had 3 shots from the exact same kind of spot. One did miss, but he was productive for most of the first half, kind of dropped away for a little bit, but in the fourth quarter kicked a really good goal, a crucial goal really to keep them in it. And it was a different type of goal, use his body work to kind of create separation rather than that lead-in power that he usually has. So it was a pretty good game for Josh. I guess, moving forward, it's finding that 4-quarter consistency and being able to probably evenly spread that type of performance. But he has his moments and he's so effective and dominant in those moments.
And he's shown throughout the Talent League so far that I think he can do it for 4 quarters. So if he can do it at the higher level of the National Championships, then that'll be a big testament to what he can do. Just a game of footy going on in the background as we record this. If you can hear some siren sounds through the microphones. Tell us about some other interstate boys, some others in some academies who performed well for the Allies.
Yeah, well, I'll touch on Nicholas Andreacchio, bottom major. He'll play next year. Good Italian boy. But he was terrific off half-back for the Allies. He's a Sydney Swans Academy product. Provide really good movement through the corridor, always looking to provide some pace and some rebound. And he was terrific all day, hard at the contest, always provided some follow-up and really well-needed, I guess, vision out of D50 for the Allies when they were struggling in probably that third quarter and start of the fourth to get some momentum back on their terms. Zeke Uland from the Gold Coast Academy, he kicked 6 in a Talent League game not too long ago. But yeah, wow, he was all around it. He's just a really bouncy, agile, kind of played in the mid but half forward a little bit, and just composure. He plays like really low to the ground, and someone similar, we know Massimo Razzo from a Western Jets perspective, they play really low and they just know how to pick it up and kind of move their body, with a low center of gravity. And I thought that was really, really well done on his behalf. But has some really bursty moments, held his width really well outside 50 and kicked a really lovely goal from 50 metres on the run in the second half. So a really, neat and tidy, bursty, all of it performance from him.
The brother of Boddy Uland, who's listed at the Gold Coast AFL at the moment, is Zeke. So certainly one to keep an eye on for Gold Coast supporters. We'll move across to South Australia. Probably a lot of interest in Sid Draper. There's been lots of talk about him in the lead up to this season and the early parts of the season. From your perspective, how did he go to start his carnival?
Yeah, it was terrific, and it's only his, I think, 3rd game back for the season. He played. He did play the SA's under-18 v under-20 game last week and a game before that, so he hasn't had a lot of footy to begin his year, but he was terrific and came into it, kind of picked up where he left off. That strength and pace, the acceleration out of the centre stoppages, he was really good. I thought early on he was a bit untidy with his handballs, probably just looking at getting it forward so much and then dish off that side handball when others weren't keeping up in that sense moving forward. But as the game went on, kicking improved. It was really neat, really good vision inside 50 late. That set up a goal in the last quarter. So yeah, it was a great opener for Sid Draper, I think, and I think he probably scratched the surface at what he's really capable of. I think he will have that real breakout game in these champs.
Yeah, a statement that we'll bookmark and certainly look back on with interest come the end of the championships is one that lots of people have got their eyes on as to the Campriali twins, the father-son prospects. Tell us about how those two went. Yeah,
well, I think both had very strong finishes and strong starts as well. Where I question both is their general kicking, and that's what lets them down a lot. I think both of them at the start were just a few kicks that were really off and were stopping transition a little bit, but it's their ability around contest. They're very poised players. They know how to work it by hand and know where to run. Like, their running patterns are superb. It's probably those kicks sometimes that can let them down. But yeah, they were instrumental late, and especially Ben, his meters gained off half back were terrific to help provide that transition and really turned the momentum, I think, at points. And Lucas was good as well off that half back position he's usually accustomed to. But yeah, it was really good, positioned well down back and took a few intercept marks. And it was pretty neat performances for both. I still think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I don't think either of them probably sit in the top 20 at this point, but I think Ben's probably there or thereabouts. But still a lot of room for improvement in both their games. High ceiling for both players, no doubt, with what we've seen from them already this season. Phoenix Hargrave,
is one who had a strong game as well. I know you're texting me quite a bit about him.
Yeah, well, Phoenix Hargrave's one I've quite enjoyed watching, and that's from a sample point of view as well. This is the under-18 competition. In terms of a player who you want second efforts, who will do all those little midfield intensity things right, that's what he does, and he did that again. His defensive efforts out of D50 were really, really good, and even when he moved forward as well, he was positioning himself well, got a few uncontested marks inside forward 50 from his work rate, and he's an intense, like he's a grunt midfielder, like always wants to win that ball. And I thought moving in transition he was good as well, lowering the eyes inside 50, a few good defensive intercepts defensive intercepts late as well, and yeah, even in the dying stages, a kick out of D50 where a lot of the pressure was kind of coming on him, gets it out wide. I think this was with a minute left, and they end up kicking that last goal through Tyler Welsh. So he's one that probably needs a bit more emphasis in his game to impact a little more when you compare him to someone like a Sid Draper for that instance, but he's still a very effective player with the little things he does, and I'm quite a big fan of defensive players just in general because it's such a big asset. As something that recruiters look on with interest. He touched on Tyler Welsh there. He came into it in the second half. He 100% did. I mean, he had, I think, one touch, or it might have been none, up to half time. Just wasn't getting himself in the game, and then flicked the switch like that. And it was pretty much the opposite. Not opposite, but you know what Josh Murphy did in that first quarter is what Tyler Welsh did in that second half, and he was impact per possession, got himself into good spots. That contested marking came to the fore, and even late I think it was in the third quarter, just a really crafty goal where he was running towards goal, was able to shrug off an opponent, handball over to Noah Howes, who we'll talk about as mid-season draft prospect, and led to a goal, and then kicked that last goal of the game. Probably his easier one where Allies were just, all over the place with the last 60 seconds and got his third goal, but really turned it on late. But that proves impact per possession player that might not have his moments early, but did everything well in that second half and finished with 3 goals. No, very good. You touched on Noah Howes there. He and Evan Bradley both hit the scoreboard throughout the day. For sure. I mean, I'll touch on Evan Bradley first. And in that first quarter, kicked their first 2 goals of the game. Really crafty inside forward 50. Thought he was a little unlucky to not get in my top 5 in the end, because he was pretty effective. And if you compare him to someone like Tyler Welsh, the only reason I had Tyler Welsh in my top 5 was just that second half when SA were coming back strong. He was just there when they needed him. But you could also say Evan Bradley was there when they needed him in the first half. Like, Allies were kicking away, but he just kept him in it and was really good, was creating space inside forward 50 and was getting off his opponent, doing all those small forward craft things that he needed to do to be impactful, and I thought he did that well. Noah Howes, mid-season draft prospect. I thought he was pretty good. Crafty in the sense where for a taller forward, he was able to move really, really well. Got a really good goal assist early in the game where he just kind of flicked a forward pass over the top to Charlie Nichols in the goal square, got himself into good spots inside 50, took contested marks, and then in the fourth quarter as well, another good contested mark and sort of a set shot when the game was on the line as well. So a really neat performance from Noah. Any others from a South Australia perspective you want to touch on? Dyson Sharp has a pretty handsome stats line. Yeah, well, Dyson Sharp, he does finish as my best for SA in the end. He's a bottom age product, and we'll see. If we're talking about Josh Smiley as, that real beast in the midfield and that number 1 pick this year, can only imagine Dyson Sharp will be up there and abouts next year. But he was just busy around that midfield. Centre stoppage wise, he was just bursting out, and you notice him straight away. His vision just lights up, knows where to get rid of it, and even on D50 as well, he provides that rebound and that real bounce and pace that they needed to keep the ball moving forward, strengthen the contest, rips it out. One of those players who just knows how to use his body work so well. And he was terrific all day. Couldn't really fault a lot of what he did in the end. So pretty big performance from him. I'm going to read out my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 votes. So we're going to do a collective Craft of the Draft National Championships medal, and we'll both watch some games, so there's games we're going to give an average of our votes collectively. But for the Allies, gave 5 votes to Leo Lombard, 4 to Sam Marshall, 3 to Daniel Annabel, 2 to Nathaniel Salzberger, and 1 to Josh Murphy. From SA, 5 to Dyson Sharp, 4 to Phoenix Hargrave, 3 to Sid Draper, 2 to Ben Camperelli, and 1 to Tyler Welsh. So that's the wrap for SA and Allies. Yep.